A reading of Agrippa. Hello everyone, thank you for joining me today. This is Taliesin McKnight, and today we're going to go a little bit deeper here. Whence the occult virtues or powers of things proceed. And as you can see, I have a little bit of a different background here. I'm visiting a friend, but the show must go on. All right, the show must go on. I'm visiting a friend. And so chapter 13, whence the occult virtues of things proceed. Here Agrippa, again, this is from the 16th century. This was published in 1531, book 1, which we're reading from, and all three books together were published in 1533. This is 16th century. We're reading Agrippa's 3 books of occult philosophy. And in this chapter, he again reiterates, he explains how magic works. Again, from a classical magic, Renaissance magic type of perspective. We have here a magician from the 1500s telling us how magic works. So Cornelius Agrippa of Nettesheim, he begins by talking about the powers of certain stones. You know, we see the same thing in the occult and the New Age community to this day, that a certain stone has powers. Today you'll often hear people say, oh, I like to wear moldavite. Or I like to wear, this stone or that stone, or I love amethyst crystals, and they help to do this or that. Modern witches use herbs, plants, things like bones, ethically procured, no doubt, things like antlers, things like that. Bones, hair, plants, herbs, like witches' brews, stones. These are the roots. These are the classical, aspects of magic. And of course, you see the roots of herbs and roots and stones and traditions around the world. But today we're looking at what Cornelius Agrippa has to say in the 1500s. Where do these occult powers come from? So, chapter 13. Whence the occult virtues of things proceed. Yes, I believe that's how you pronounce it. Moldavite. Yes, sir. Hi, Jeremiah. It is a pleasure and an honor to have you here with me. Thank you so much for coming in here. It's an honor. All right. So we're looking at chapter 13, whence the occult virtues of things proceed. It is well known to all. Now, some of this stuff gets a little crazy. He's talking about how a certain fish can stop a ship. Or, a certain herb, who knows? Like if they believe that much or they're right. But he makes some things that modern people, a lot of us would kind of chuckle. But this was written in the 1500s. So I'm just going to read this here. And he's going to break down, again, he's going to break down what the whole premise of his book is about. How does magic work? So we're going to delve into this. Chapter 13. This is book 1, chapter 13 of Cornelius Agrippa's 3 books of occult philosophy. And I've provided a monetized link if you'd like to buy a copy. I do earn a commission from that if you use my links. But I've got in the description if you want to buy a copy. I like this compact version. Very easy. It's all 3 books. I can just sit and read. Anyways, back to this. Whence the occult virtues of things proceed. It is well known to all that there is a certain virtue in the lodestone. He's talking about lodestones. By which it attracts iron. And that the diamond doth by its presence take away that virtue of the lodestone. So also amber and jet rubbed and warmed draw a straw to them. And the stone asbestos, being once fired, is never or scarce extinguished. A carbuncle shines in the dark. The stone Aetites puts above the young fruit of women. The stone Aetite put above the young fruit of women or plants strengthens them. Being put under causes abortion. The jasper stenched blood. The jasper stenched blood. The little fish, echinacea, stops the ships. Rhubarb expels choler. So he's going through the list, but he's about to explain why. Why do plants and stones have these powers? But we're going to get through this first. Jasper stenched the blood. The little fish, echinacea, stops ships. Rhubarb expels choler. The liver of the chameleon burnt, raised showers and thunders. The stone heliotrope dazzles the sight and makes him that wears it to be invisible. The stone leucurius takes away delusions from before the eyes. The perfume of the stone liparis calls forth all the beasts, and stone stenocatus brings up infernal ghosts. So that stone brings up ghosts. The stone anakitis makes the images of the gods appear. The anectus put under them that dream cause oracles. So that's a stone you put under your pillow and it causes oracles when you sleep. Again, dream magic. There is an herb or plant in Ethiopia with which they report ponds and lakes are dried up, and all things that are shut to be opened. And we read of an herb called lattice, which the Persian kings give to their ambassadors, that whithersoever they shall come, they shall abound with plenty of all things. There is also a Scythian herb, with which being tasted, or at least held in the mouth, they report the Scythians will endure 12 days hunger and thirst. And Apuleius said that he was taught by an oracle that there were many kinds of herbs and stones with which men might prolong their lives forever, but that it was not lawful for men to understand the knowledge of those things, because, whereas they have but a short time to live, they study mischief with all their might, and attempt all manner of wickedness. If they should be sure of a very long life, they would not spare the gods themselves. But from whence these virtues are, none of all these have showed, who have set forth huge volumes of the properties of things. So he's saying nobody seems to know where the power comes from. Why is an amethyst powerful? Why is chrysoprase powerful? Why is this plant powerful for magic? He's saying no one explains why. Why is it powerful? So here he's going into why magic works. None of them have explained why. Not Hermes, not Bacchus, not Aaron, not Orpheus, not Theophrastus, not Thebit, not Xenothemis, not Zoroaster, not Evax, not Dioscorides, not Isaac the Jew, not Zacharias the Babylonian, not Albertus, not Arnoldus, and yet all these have confessed the same. That Zacharias writes to Mithridates that great power and human destinies are couched in the virtues of stones and herbs. But to know from whence these come, a higher speculation is required. Alexander the Peripatetic, not going any further than his senses and qualities, is of the opinion that these proceed from the elements and their qualities, which haply might be supposed to be true, if those were of the same species. But many of the operations of the stones agree neither in genre nor species. Therefore Plato and his scholars attribute these powers to the Platonic ideas, the formers of things. But Avicenna reduced these kinds of operations to intelligences, so supernatural beings, intelligences. Hermes says the power comes from the stars. Albertus to the specific forms of things. And although these authors seem to thwart one the other, yet none of them, if they be rightly understood, goes beside the truth. He's saying they're all right, and he's going to explain why. Although these authors seem to thwart one the other, yet none of them, if they be rightly understood, goes beside the truth, since all their sayings are the same in effect in most things. For God, and this was written in the 1500s in Europe, so it was very Christian also, so we have to keep in mind the time it was written. So he says, for God, in the first place, is the end and beginning of all powers. He gives the seal of the ideas to his servants, the intelligences. Now, the intelligences are the supernatural beings that are under God, basically. The intelligences are kind of like angels, or deities, or however you want to see that. Intelligences are like angels or deities. They're beneath the one or the monad, but they're all these divine powers that are above nature, above the stars. So, for God in the first place is the end and beginning of all powers. He gives the seal of the ideas to his servants, the intelligences, who as faithful officers sign all things entrusted to them with an ideal virtue, the heavens and stars, as instruments, disposing the matter in the meanwhile for the receiving of those forms, which reside in the divine majesty, as said Plato in the Timaeus, and to be conveyed by stars. And the giver of forms distributes them by the ministry of his intelligences, which he has set as rulers and controllers of his works. So, what he's saying is, all things originally proceed from the one, or the monad, or some would say God. All proceeds from the one, or the good. From the one or the good are the intelligences, which are like archangels or deities, whatever. Their powers above the stars, above the heavens. These, in turn, distribute those powers to the stars and constellations, the stars and planets. And then the stars and planets convey those powers into the elements. So there's a divine outpouring, according to Agrippa. It begins with the monad or the one, then it goes to the intelligences. The intelligences distribute those powers to the stars and planets. So above every star and planet is a divine power in the divine realm, which uses the stars and planets like a medium, and the planets and stars put those astrological virtues into the stones and earths. So in a nutshell, every stone, every plant, every stone, plant, animal, every stone, every herb, every metal is associated with a particular star or planet. So you could say these plants or these stones have power to draw love because of Venus. These stones have power to bring prosperity because they're solar or because they're Jupiterian. These planets are good, or these stones or plants are good for warfare and protection because they're associated with Mars. So the rays or the powers of the stars are contained in, like the Earth is like the womb that receives the powers of the stars and planets, and it gives us stones and plants. So through the stones and plants, we reach up to the celestial realm, Agrippa's second world. So the book 1 is about natural magic, like stones and plants. That's the elementary realm. The second world is the celestial realm of planets and zodiac signs and all that, the heavens. And then the third world and the third book, dealing with ceremonial magic, is the divine realm. So he's talking about this divine outpouring. Angel says he referred to God as he or him. Does he ever refer to God as she or her? No, because it was written in the 1500s. They weren't very progressive in the 1500s. So no, he does not. Yeah, it's from the 1500s. So, I mean, it would be nice if he had done that and been a great progressive. You know, that would have been really nice. But unfortunately, you didn't see a lot of that in the 1500s. But I wish he did. But no, he did not. So it says here, so I'm going to back up a little. So having said all of this, let's go back here. Again, we're reading Agrippa's 3 books of occult philosophy. Book 1 was published in 1531, all 3 books in 1533. For God in the first place is the end and beginning of all virtues. He gives the seal of the ideas to his servants the intelligences, who as faithful officers sign all things entrusted to them with an ideal virtue, the heavens and stars, as instruments. Again, we're not just working with the planets, we're working through the planets to the divine realm of Platonic ideas and stuff. The heavens and stars as instruments, disposing the matter in the meanwhile for the receiving of those forms which reside in divine majesty, as said Plato and Timaeus, and to be conveyed by stars. The stars aren't the source, they're the carriers. To be conveyed by stars. And the giver of forms distributes them by the ministry of his intelligences, which he has set as rulers and controllers over his works, to whom such a power is entrusted in things committed to them, so that all the powers of stones, herbs, metals, and all other things may come from the intelligences, the governors. The form, therefore, and the power of things comes first from the Platonic ideas, then from the ruling and governing intelligences, then from the aspects of the heavens disposing, astrology. These kinds of operations, therefore, are performed in these inferior, meaning below, not inferior as in worse, but in superior, literally in Latin means up there, inferior below. So here below in this earthly realm, these kinds of operations are like stones and plants, the elemental realm. These kinds of operations, therefore, are performed in these inferior things by express forms, and in the heavens by disposing powers. Beyond them, in intelligences, by mediating rules, in the original cause, by ideas, and exemplary forms, all which must of necessity agree in the execution of the effect and virtue of everything. There is, therefore, and we're almost done, there's a paragraph left. It's a large paragraph, so let's get through this here. There is, therefore, a wonderful power and operation in every herb and stone, but greater in a star. So there's more power in Venus than a stone of Venus or a plant of Venus. There's more power in the star. So there is therefore a wonderful power and operation in every herb and stone, but greater in a star, beyond which, even from the governing intelligences, everything received, and obtains many things for itself, especially from the supreme cause, with whom all things do mutually and exactly correspond, agreeing in a harmonious consent. So we're using the occult sympathies. So you have natural magic, dealing with stones and plants and herbs, and you see a lot of modern witches and magicians work with stones and plants and candle magic with oils. That's natural magic. Agrippa says you can amp the power up if you understand the astrological powers. You combine natural magic with astrological magic. So you're adding a little extra power here because you understand that the powers of these stones and herbs come from the heavens. According to this one viewpoint and theory, well, it's classical magic viewpoint, this one, but so by looking at astrological time and understanding astrology, you can add that extra power. And by making contact with the divine powers beyond the heavens, you get even more power. So there's these 3 tiers. So you're working with stones and plants. Then you're considering the astrological conditions and powers. Then you're working with what's above the heavens. So let's get through this last chapter here. There is therefore a wonderful power in operation in every herb and stone, but greater in a star, beyond which, even from the governing intelligences, everything received, and obtains many things for itself, especially from the supreme cause, or the one, or the monad, with whom all things do mutually and exactly correspond, agreeing in an harmonious consent, as it were in hymns, always praising the highest maker of all things, as by the 3 children in the fiery furnace, were all things called upon to praise God with singings. Bless ye the Lord, all things that grow upon the earth, and all things which move in the waters, all fowls of the heavens, beasts and cattle, together with the sons of men. There is therefore no other cause of the necessity of effects than the connection of all things with the first cause, and their correspondences with those divine patterns and eternal ideas. Whence everything hath its determinate and particular place in the exemplary world. So you're getting aware of like the hidden occult sympathies between things, which kind of goes into the Hermetic axiom, as above, so below. We're kind of putting the Emerald Tablet and Hermetic wisdom to practice. From whence it lives and receives its original being, and every power of herbs, stones, metals, animals, words, and speeches, and all things that are of God is placed there. Now the first cause, which is God, although he doth by intelligences in the heavens work upon these inferior things, doth sometimes, these mediums being laid aside, or their officiating being suspended, works those things immediately by himself, which works are then called miracles. So he's saying that, yes, this is how things work in Agrippa's 16th century view scientifically. Sometimes these laws are set aside and miracles happen. There's like sometimes the divine just steps in without any intermediaries. But whereas secondary causes, which Plato and others call handmaids, do by the command and appointment of the first cause necessarily act, and are necessitated to produce their effects, if God shall notwithstanding, according to his pleasure, so discharge and suspend them, that they shall wholly desist from the necessity of that command and appointment, then they are called the greatest miracles of God. So the fire in the Chaldeans' furnace did not burn the children. So also the sun at the command of Joshua went back from its course the space of 1 whole day. So also at the prayer of Hezekiah it went back 10 degrees or hours. So when Christ was crucified, the sun was darkened, though at full moon. And the reasons these operations can by no rational discourse, no magic or occult or profound science whatsoever be found out or understood, but are to be learned and inquired into by divine oracles only. So that is chapter 13. And again, you are going to get like a Christian model in there, because this book's from the 1500s. I mean, we can't go back in time. We can't go into, like, you know, we're going to change the world time machine and go back and thump Agrippa on the nose, you know. And, but, I mean, this was written in the 1500s. It was a product of its time, but it gives us a way to kind of peer into a Renaissance model. Now, I think whatever someone's background is, we all have different opinions and viewpoints. And modern magic may see things a little differently in general, if one can even generalize at all. But I think it's interesting to go back and look at what these classical magicians from the Renaissance were saying. What were people saying about magic in the 15, 16, 17, 1800s? Like, what were they saying? Well, then it was already modernizing. What were they saying in classical magic? So this is kind of a return to kind of understanding. The ancient sages still have their voices heard, and we can ponder upon the mysteries that they expound in their great treatises and works. They live on. Their words live on. And we still ponder the mysteries that they propound. But this chapter 13 that we just read basically sums up the whole 3 books of occult philosophy, which are also summed up in the first 2 chapters. So it talks about these 3 levels or 3-world model. We have this world here below with stones and plants and oils and metals and you know, things that we work with, oils of this plant, or we work with this stone like a moldavite or you know, chalcedony, whatever stone, right? Onyx, amber. And then we have the second world. Agrippa says these powers derive from the cosmos, the heavens, which in the next chapter he's going to go into the world soul, which is not a Christian concept. It's a Platonic concept, the world soul, or anima mundi. So the cosmos was seen as a living being. So really what you see here is pagan and Christian ideas side by side, because the next chapter is going to talk about the world soul. So the cosmos, the whole cosmos, was seen as a living being, endowed with body, the universe, and with mind and with soul. And it's the world soul that is the intermediary that we're able to make these connections, because we're all interconnected in like a web of life. We're all connected by the world soul, which is a pagan idea, the anima mundi, which Plato talks about in his Timaeus. But anyway, so we're getting into some of the groundwork. This is what classical magic was. This is how they believed that magic worked in the 16th century. So again, we are reading Agrippa's 3 books of occult philosophy. If you don't have a copy yet, I have links up there if you want to buy a copy. I actually put a link for this little compact one that I'm reading from. If you get a copy, you could read it with me. So anyways, so that's it for today. And I hope everyone's having a wonderful day. And I will see y'all in the next video. Have a great night, y'all.